Best thing about working here is that it's different every day. So when you're in the news business, it's like the perfect ongoing lifelong learning commitment, because every day there's something that comes up that you didn't know anything about, and suddenly you have to quickly educate yourself, and then you've learned something new. So it's like an ongoing lifelong education. For example, I knew nothing about lead in water this time last year, and now I'm practically an expert on this topic. So every single day there's something that comes up that's new to me, and that makes the job exciting and fun to come to. Realizing how much you don't know. I mean, we are expected to become experts on things sometimes fairly quickly, or at least experts enough that we know what we're talking about and we're not saying incorrect things on the air. So that can be really challenging. That and keeping up with everything that's happening. The news now happens so fast, and the expectation of the audience is that you'll have credible information so quickly for them that can be a real challenge. The reality is the faster you work, the more likely you are to be able to make mistakes. And so that in today's news age is probably the most challenging thing that we have to deal with. Usually when I meet donors, I like to find out what their favorite stories are, because everybody has a different one, and it's always sort of surprising to me the stories that stay with people. We will put a lot of time into in-depth, investigative, hard-hitting stories, and sometimes the stories that people remember are really surprising ones about a child who had a good day at school, or a marble shootout, or something that we thought was just sort of a fun piece, and that stays with them. So whenever I meet a donor, one of the things I always like to ask them is, what story do you most remember from listening to Michigan radio? I'm a travel junkie, so my favorite stories are always the ones that have allowed me to travel. So in the course of my career, I've been in Australia and in Europe. Even working here, I had the opportunity to go to Ghana and to South Africa. And so those are probably the stories that are my favorites, because I just do love to travel. I think the most interesting story that we're working on right now is what's going on with the Detroit Public Schools. The legislature has split the schools into two, and this is really a new thing that hasn't happened anywhere else in the country. And so it's going to be fascinating, I think, to us to see what happens and if it really creates the improvements in the school district that they're hoping to have. Last year was all about Flint in this newsroom. I think in this upcoming year, it's going to be all about Detroit Public Schools, and it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the changes that have been put in place really do any good. I think what inspires me every day is a desire to inform the public about issues that we think are important. You look at what's happened in the news media in the past decade, even in the past 2 decades. You've seen, even in Michigan, lots of cuts, lots of layoffs, lots of retractions, lots of reductions in what used to be major daily newspapers. And so there's sort of a sense of responsibility that falls on Michigan radio to tell the important stories of the state. And I think that responsibility inspires me every morning to get up, come in, and do a good job.